shot towards the end zone. Under touchdown. Trey Tucker. To the end zone it goes. Caught. Touchdown, Armand Benz.
What is going on, everybody? Neil Meyer here of the Bearcat Blitz show, back for the later half of this week's podcast. Obviously, going to be featuring in my colleague over at CincinnatiRivals.com and JT Smtih again for the second half of this episode, as our man Russ Heltman is still out enjoying his honeymoon after a beautiful wedding for Russ and his now wife, Brooke, over the weekend. So huge congratulations to our guy Russ over there as he enjoys his honeymoon. But it's kind of been a slow week for the Bearcats. Obviously, JT and I will break down. Obviously, football's on the bye week, but it's been a busy week on the hard court as Wes Miller and the Cincinnati Bearcats welcome in two top 50 prospects within the 2025 class. So we'll break that down here on this episode, and then we'll cherry pick into the back half of the football schedule as well, and we'll give our thoughts and predictions and what we think will head into the back half of the season, what will happen for the Cincinnati Bearcats that at least we hope for on our side of things. But before we get into this episode, we have to talk about our number one sponsor in Bet Online. So for those who haven't checked Bet Online out or heard of what Bet Online is, it is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or even unwind with one of our over 150 slot games as well. Head on over to betonline.com today to get in on the action, or Bet Online as well. But overall, Bet Online, where the game starts here. JT, a lot to break down on this episode here of Bearcat Blitz. Obviously, a very busy week for Wes Miller and company there up in Clifton. Football's on the bye week, so we turn the focus to the hardwood. Cincinnati welcomes in. First off, we'll start with the visitor who just wrapped up his official visit in 2025 top 30 prospect in Sean Ababe. JT, a big-time recruit for Wes Miller and the Bearcats, a 6'7", 185-pound shooting guard out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, from Calvary Christian Academy. Let's break it down a little bit, JT. After watching some of Sean Ababe's tape and stuff, what have you personally seen from him on tape, and how does this visit kind of excite you for what Wes Miller is doing?
Excites me because he's fits that mold, the 6'7" guy, long, sneaky athletic. Seems like he can shoot too, like kind of a do-it-all type of guy. It fits in with what the Bearcats have brought in, like just think of the Dan Skillings, Smtih Lukosius, like he has different game than those guys, but he fits that mold where everybody is kind of interchangeable, and where, Smtih could essentially be playing the 4 sometimes. He could be playing the 2, depending on who they're playing, the 3, so, I think he fits that mold where you're just like, okay, he might technically be a shooting guard, but he might have to play the 3. You know what I mean? Like, so he's kind of that combo guy where it's kind of positionless. It is position basketball, but sometimes it can be positionless, more so than it used to be, in the early 2000s. So he's just one of those guys I think that fits the mold of what a Bearcat guy has looked at like the last few years.
Yeah, so you head on over to our website in CincinnatiRivals.com and you check out Sean Ababe's rankings and everything. We currently have him ranked as the number 24th ranked player in the 2025 class. 8 ranked shooting guard there as well, but he's coming off a month, JT, where last few months recently, he's wrapping up his official visits. Obviously, you look back at the timeline. He visited Dayton back on August 23rd. Then he went to Syracuse on 8/30. And then he took a trip out to Southern California on September 13th, to Auburn on the 20th, and then he's wrapping up his visit here at Cincinnati, and then it looks like he is set to visit Maryland next week as well. And from the reports that we have seen, I know Arkansas has been making a late push for him. Obviously, it sounds like he is set to take a visit out to Fayetteville to visit John Calipari and that new Arkansas staff. But overall, this is a big-time target for Wes Miller and this Bearcat staff, because overall, you look at the recruits that Wes Miller and this coaching staff and what they have been able to bring in. They're not shooting and missing. They're bringing in these 4 or 5-star talents. And anytime you can do that, that's a big opportunity there. But, JT, we talk about Sean Abe. This is a guy who saw his recruiting ranks skyrocket throughout this offseason after dominating the AAU circuit. This is a guy who can score on multiple different levels. He can really defend as well, but he's one of those guys who is 6'7", 6'8", and can really, really space the floor as well. And then you look down at where he all has offers from, and there's a reason he's starting to get those offers as well. Auburn an offer, Cincinnati, Dayton, Maryland, Syracuse, Arizona State's coming in there, Georgia, Illinois, Georgia Tech. He even has a Kansas offer, Michigan, LSU. So he has a lot of Power 5, Power 4 offers, and some even coming from national title contenders. So overall, anytime you can get him on campus for an official visit, that is huge. But not only are you able to get him on campus, but we turn the focus to a guy that Coach Drew Adams is really familiar with as well, that is reported to visit Cincinnati this upcoming weekend, and that is going to be 2025 small forward Davion Hannah as well. So overall, 2 big-time targets for Cincinnati there. Davion Hannah is set to visit Cincinnati this weekend per reports. So overall, JT, just give a little quick breakdown on a guy in Davion Hannah as well, and what have you seen from him on tape?
Yeah, I mean, you see him long, lanky. Like I said, if people have been paying attention, there's been a type that Wes Miller has been recruiting since especially since they got to the Big 12. He did it for sure at the AAC, but it was a little bit harder. I think maybe the portal went with that move, but now that he's been in there, you look at the Rayvon Griffiths, you look at Tyler Betsy, these guys, I mean, like Davion Hannah fits that build. Like, he's a guy that athletic, long, lanky, can create for himself. So it's one of those things, like, you see the potential, you see why all these schools are clamoring over him. Rivals has him set as the 33rd overall guy in the class of 2025. And, he's set to be on campus on Friday. So, hopefully the Bearcats, they have two big time guys here within the last 48 hours or 24 hours essentially. So it's a big thing for the Bearcats and Wes Miller staff, and they normally, if they get people on campus, they normally have a real good shot of getting them. Yeah,
absolutely. And actually, according to our Rivals website, it looks like he'll be visiting on the 12th, so a little early on it, but still a big time priority target for Cincinnati that is rumored to be coming to Cincinnati for an official visit. But overall, JT, you look down at what Davion Hannah as well, and there's a very, very good connection with him to Cincinnati, because for people who don't know, Cincinnati assistant coach Drew Adams coached his brother Darius during his time at Bradley. Darius actually came to Cincinnati in the NIT run last year, and we did break down his profile as well for those who follow us on our other podcast. But overall, this is another big-time climber for the 2025 recruiting class. Obviously, with the previous relationship with the family and Coach Adams, this is definitely a name to keep an eye on for all the Bearcats fans. Obviously, you look down, we have him ranked as the 33rd player within the 2025 class. He has offers from Alabama, Cincinnati, Louisville, Michigan State, Missouri. Sounds like Xavier has also offered him, Ohio State, Auburn, LSU, Oregon, USC. So the list goes on for Davion Hannah. But what's also worth noting too, JT, as we found out right before we filmed this, that he has actually canceled his official visits to Pittsburgh, which was set to happen in the near future. And he also canceled his Michigan State visit that was slated to happen today. So overall, anytime you hear those, that is a huge, huge thing. And obviously, when you look down at his final 7, which included Michigan State, Alabama, Cincinnati, Pitt was in his final 7 as well, Alabama, Louisville. So overall, anytime you hear that 2 of those official visits got canceled, you start to kind of feel a little bit better at where you might sit in terms of that decision looming. But overall, I think think both are set to announce their official decisions later on this year. So it's going to be interesting to see if these 2 could be potential future Bearcats. Obviously, we don't know 100% yet how the visits went or how they will go in the near future. But overall, these are 2 big-time targets. And JT, I think that's the most impressive thing, is that Wes Miller is continuing to get these 4 or 5 stars here on campus for visits. And anytime you can happen, that is huge, especially, JT, when we're talking about Davion Hannah here, we have to talk about the connection to Link Academy out there in Missouri that Wes Miller has. Obviously, we saw it in the past with guys like Jared Hensley, AJ McGinnis. You saw Tyler McKinley go out to Link last year as well. Hayden Koval played at Link in the years past. So overall, Cincinnati has a great connection to Link Academy out there in Missouri. So overall, this is another one of Wes Miller's big-time targets coming to campus, but it's an exciting target to say the least, because obviously anytime you can have those 2 top 50 prospects on campus, it's going to be huge.
No, for sure, man.
Yeah, so we'll take a quick break here on this episode of Bearcat Blitz, go through a brief message from our friends over at Cherry Bundy, and then we'll transition things over to the gridiron. Obviously, a lot to unpack there on the football aspect of things. We'll break down the second half of the season, give our predictions and what the Bearcats have to do to get back to that bowl game eligible. So we'll be right back after a quick message from our friends over at Cherry Bundy. All right. So for those who have been following the show, we have a brief message here from our friends over at Cherry Bundy. I have my Cherry Bundy drink right here, but for those who haven't heard of what Cherry Bundy is, it is a natural product and ingredient with no added sugar, contained with tart cherries, which are the highest antitoxin fruit or vegetable in the whole world. It is a natural anti-inflammatory with incredible benefits that reduce your soreness, increase your recovery time, and contain naturally occurring melatonin to help improve sleep, and it helps support immunity. But for those who are wondering where you can find Cherry Bundy, a little fun fact is it is actually used by every college there in the United States outside of one, which is Indiana. So you can find Cherry Bundy even within the UC locker rooms for their recovery. So that is a great note as well. But overall, a huge shout out to our friends at Cherry Bundy. It's used by 500 collegiate and professional sports teams. Every NFL team has Cherry Bundy within their health and nutrition facilities. But overall, you can go over, find Cherry Bundy online at cherrybundy.com. I use it after all of my workouts, and I will say it is probably the best nutritional drink that I have used and experienced after a good hard workout. So overall, you can head on over to cherrybundy.com or even find it in local retailers as Kroger or Amazon as well. So going forward, we will have another quick break. But going forward, JT, a lot to break down here. Cincinnati currently 3-2 heading into the bye week. Obviously, the bye week's coming at a great time due to some players being banged up, but you now have a week and a half to get into UCF. JT, just talk about the importance of having this bye week at the time that we have it now. You have roughly about a week and a half, 2 weeks to prepare for a known rivalry versus UCF. How important is that bye week to come at the time that it did?
Man, this was if you had a crystal ball and you saw when the bye week was, you might have thought it was too early before the season started. But if you knew the injuries that they were going to be battling, I would think this is perfect timing, because you got to think about it. UCF is licking their wounds at the Colorado, manhandled them at the bounce house. I'm not for sure if UCF plays this week. I haven't checked their schedule.
They play Florida.
Okay, play Florida. Yep, I did see that.
Non-con.
So, yep. So that's another game. Florida's okay, but at the same time, it's another game, in-state rivalry, recruits type of thing.
A lot
so
UCF
right
as well.
So like a lot at stake there. So, UCF will have a battle. UC gets the rest. UC and UCF are rivals. The rivalry is starting to kind of pick up, and it's one of those things that people kind of, even online, people are talking stuff. So it's one of those ones that have been naturally created. It's not manufactured. They have a static fan base that probably gets on a lot of Bearcat Nation's, nerves. But at the same time, they do have a fan base, and that makes it all for fun and games. I think it's perfect timing for the Bearcats because, at first I kind of counted this game as like I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but I counted this game as like a loss before. But I think this is a winnable game, but they do need as many hands on deck as they can because last time they went on the road, a lot of people went down, so they need to have better luck on their injury front, and then defense had to play a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely, JT. And obviously, heading into this, the bye week is crucial because of all the injuries that Cincinnati is dealing with currently. Obviously, the big one highlighted by Corey Kiner. We still don't have an update there as well. Obviously, with the bye week, we did not have our weekly media availability as well. So we'll hopefully know more on Tuesday when we talk to Coach Satterfield and them. But JT, you're looking at the back half of the schedule. Obviously, you're 3-2 heading into UCF. Then you get the matchup with UCF in Orlando. And from the early sounds of it, it looks like that game's going to be played in some torrential downpours or some kind of weather-related games. It's not going to be the clean game. Obviously, it looks like and sounds like it's going to be raining. Potential another storm might roll through there as well in that Florida area. But then you come back home to Cincinnati for Week 7 versus Arizona State. And then you have to go back on the road versus Colorado, then come back home, welcome in longtime rival in West Virginia in their first matchup back here at Nippert Stadium since the Big East days. Then you have to go on the road and face arguably the two toughest teams left on the schedule in Iowa State and Kansas State in consecutive weeks before you cap off the season with TCU. So overall, the Bearcats have plenty of opportunities ahead of them. And I'll say that right now because I know a lot of us, when we talked about Cincinnati and what they had to do to get to the bowl game here, it all depended on what they had to do in the first half, and that was really take care of the non-conference slate. Obviously, they were 2-1 there in the non-conference, but they're still putting themselves in great position to find themselves playing for a potential bowl game there in December. But JT, you look at this back half of the schedule, as I just mentioned. We start off with UCF, Arizona State, Colorado, West Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State, and TCU for the last 7 games. There is no reason that Cincinnati shouldn't be able to get to a bowl game with that kind of schedule. And the reason I say that is Arizona State has been struggling this season, despite starting the season 3-0. They have really struggled there in Big 12 play. Looking at the Big 12 standings, Arizona State is currently 0-1 in the Big 12, towards the bottom half of the Big 12 standings. They are just 1 game behind Cincinnati, but they are 0-1 in Big 12 play as of today on October 3rd. But overall, give me your predictions for the back half of this schedule, and what do you see the Bearcats doing in the final 7 games?
All right. So do you want me like each game, or do you want me just to kind of lump it all into one?
You can lump it all in together.
Okay. So with how many games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so with 7 games left, man, because the Big 12 has been like the most erratic conference so far. I don't know hopefully that's the right word, but it's just been up and down. And I think that bodes well for the Bearcats if they can ride the wave. I think they can go 3-4 or 4-3 in the last 7 games. I can see that. The UCF game is winnable. They have to, tackle in open field better. Arizona State is not as easy as if you told me this game before the schedule for any games played, I thought this game would be
one of those
still could be a blowout. Who knows? But I thought that was a sure win. They're playing better than expected, even though like they're struggling so far in the Big 12, where they lost their first game. See what they do this weekend. But that game at home, you got to win. So that's one of those ones. Colorado is playing a lot better after that Nebraska game than people expected. I did not expect them to go to the bounce house and bounce UCF. So the Bearcats are going to have to saddle up against Colorado at Colorado because they're explosive on offense. And, Bearcats have been giving up a lot of big plays, and they're a big play team. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two worlds collide, in a couple weeks or the end of the month. West Virginia is one of those ones you got to get. I think you have to get that one at home. Got to protect Nippert. Iowa State right now is looking like the best team in the conference. Will they have some slippage? If they do, the Bearcats will have to take advantage of it. If not, that's one of those games I'm kind of counting as a loss. Kansas State, they've been up and down, but they've shown enough. They have enough talent where I kind of count that as a loss. And then TCU is the one they gotta hammer down. But there's no team that's unbeatable in this conference, so they can pull off. It'll be an upset, but it won't be. It's doable. You know what I mean? There's no juggernaut in this conference. Even how good Iowa State has been playing, they're still beatable. It's just that the Bearcats have to be the ones to beat them. So I'm gonna say 3-4, enough to get 6 wins. Positive, say 3-5. I mean 4-3. I could be copping out. Y'all can judge me, but I say they'll do enough to get to a bowl game this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm right there with you. Obviously, entering the season, for those who have followed us over on Bearcat Blitz, Russ and I definitely had this conversation where we thought there was a legitimate chance where Cincinnati could go 7-5 this season, and they're putting themselves in prime position to do that. Obviously, with how things played out in the non-conference, that was the main thing that we talked about. In order for Cincinnati to get back to a bowl game, they had to take care of business in the non-conference slate. And I said it, JT, I said the back half of the schedule will be easier than what the front half of the schedule would be because of the back half and the teams that you welcome in. And obviously you talk about defending the NIP. That has been the number one priority for Scott Satterfield and this staff. But Kansas State, it's going to be a challenge there as well. Obviously within one of the Kansas State and Iowa State are two of the best teams within the Big 12 right now. So they have to go on the road and play two very good teams on the road. And obviously with how things shook up versus Iowa State last year at home, it's going to be interesting to see how Cincinnati responds versus Iowa State this year on the road. But JT, after seeing what they put on display down in Lubbock, Texas over the weekend in their first road game, there's one thing we can say about this team, and they're going to be able to compete in any environment. They've shown that in a very hostile environment, and they went up and put up 40 points on the road. Not many people do that down in Lubbock. So to see that, that's a great sign. And it gives you all the confidence heading into the world. But I'm going to stick with my prediction that I said at the beginning of the year. There is a chance Cincinnati could go 7-5, and I think they finished the year 4-3. And the reason I say that, JT, is the question. I think Arizona State is going to be a winnable game for Cincinnati, and I think there's a chance you can definitely beat West Virginia as well. And then Colorado, I think it's going to be the tough matchup, because if Colorado plays like how they played versus UCF in the bounce house, it's going to be hard to stop them. Obviously, Travis Hunter is doing something that is extremely unheard of and something that not even 2-3 other people have done at this level. Obviously, it was done by Deion Sanders, but what he's doing right now is a legitimately fun thing to watch out there as his athletic abilities are on full display. But then you look down, you see Kansas State, TCU. I think definitely there is a chance, JT, where you handle business versus UCF, Arizona State, West Virginia, and then finish the year off with a win at home at Nippert Stadium to go to 7-5. I think if that is the case for Cincinnati, I think they are in great hands. You'll put yourself back in bowl contention, which is a great sight to see, especially coming off the 3-9 season a year ago. But that gets all the fans back excited. And anytime a bowl game, I know right now the early projection is the Birmingham Bowl. But JT, if you remember those right, what was the last time that happened when Cincinnati went to the Birmingham Bowl? The next year later, they ended up going to the Peach Bowl. So a very, very good remembrance for those Bearcats fans and things to look forward to after what happened last time. Obviously, if that is the outcome there towards the end of the season. But for me, JT, personally, there's no reason why Cincinnati should not find themselves back into a bowl game there at the end of this season. So overall, shout out where people can find you again. Obviously, we thank you for coming on. That's all we got for this episode of Bearcat Blitz. But before we get out of here, shout out where people can find all your work.
Oh, for sure, man. Appreciate you for having me on too, Neil. So you guys can find me and Neil as well over at Cincinnati.rivals.com, aka the frontofficenews.com. Either one will get you where you need to go. So make sure you go over there, sign up, join our forum, and talk some sports, UC sports with us. But also on social media, aka Twitter, X. You can find me at _JT_Smith. And then also you can find Front Office News on Twitter and Instagram. And then also check out our YouTube page, Front Office News. Subscribe to that as well. So that's all my social medias, and show us talk a little UC sports.
Yeah, and before we get out of here, make sure you go drop a like and a subscribe to all the platforms that you listen to this special podcast on, whether that's Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundClouds, whatever you listen to your podcast on. Go drop us a like and follow over here at Bearcat Blitz. We really appreciate everyone for checking us out. But this concludes the later half of the week for Bearcat Blitz, and we'll be back next week previewing the UCF game after the bye week as well. So we'll get on out of here, and this concludes another great episode of Bearcat Blitz.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one, too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the